Hey everybody, it's Coach Geordie from TriathlonCoach.ca and Ottawa Online Fitness. Welcome to this fourth seminar in the Somersault series that will help to prepare you for triathlon. We did 3 of them in January and decided it only made sense that our race day event seminar would make more sense being closer to the event. And with the triathlon season starting everywhere, including in Ottawa next Saturday, here we are to talk about the immediacy, everything that's important right away. So this guy here had a good race day in September of 2000. Of course, Simon Whitfield, who doesn't look like he'd eaten for a while before this race. Maybe that's why he ran so fast. I do not recommend that. Anyway, a great memory for many of us, I'm sure. So throughout this video, I'm going to be changing the slides. So the slides are onto the green screen behind me, and it will just take me a couple seconds to change the slide, and I'll be coming to the keyboard to do that. So very quickly about me, I come from a sport background, so basketball, football, track and field. But once I retired from those, more or less, although I continued somewhat, I did my first triathlon in 1986 and Ironman in 97. I was privileged to represent Canada in the age group worlds in 2008. 25 years I've been in the fitness and triathlon and swim coaching. I founded the Ottawa Triathlon Club in 2004. Almost forgot. I'm no longer involved, except we're very good friends. I'm a certified triathlon coach. I founded the Ottawa Run Club. Karen, one of the key organizers, is here. Again, I'm a big supporter of the Run Club now, though no longer active. So what am I doing now? I'm a swim coach. I run Ottawa Swimming, located online at ottawaswimming.ca with 11 different swims around the city. And we're going to be having some open water swimming as well. And Ottawa Online Fitness with TriathlonCoach.ca, which is sort of part of it. So you can check out those websites online, and don't hesitate to email if you have any questions or you're interested in learning more. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of the triathlon is the big nugget up here. I want you to, perspective is everything. And your joy on the event day really is related to your mental approach. First of all, you're going to be nervous. If you're not nervous, then something is desperately wrong. I've been doing triathlon for 36 years, something like that. 36. I'm nervous on the morning of a race. I'm nervous at the starting line. It's all part of it. So anticipate that, expect that. But in your mind, remind yourself that it is just another training day. It's a training day with a whole bunch of friends and not free Gatorade, a different Quebec fluid replacement drink that will be at the early bird. So sorry, I should have got a plug in there for you, Adam. I should have updated that slide. On race day, you will be tapered. We're going to talk about this. You will be at peak fitness. I keep going out of focus for some reason. Maybe I'm standing too far to the side. Sorry about that. So know that on race day, if you taper well, you're in peak fitness. Test yourself. You're fitter on race day than you were in training. I'm going to talk about pacing, but when it comes down to it on the run, don't hold back. You're going to be fit, and you're going to have an opportunity for performance. During the race day experience, it is, I hesitate to use the word unique, but other people have said this. Triathlons are just a unique environment. It's such a welcoming community. Everyone supports each other. There's no ultra competitive general feeling. There are some ultra competitive athletes, but they're all part of this family. And so on the day, take it all in, arrive early, look at the beautiful beaches and pools and roadways and the transition zone and all those smiling, nervous faces. So make sure to really enjoy it. And above all, on race day, you're there to celebrate the journey and celebrate the fitness and how lucky you are to be healthy enough to take part in the race. I'll talk more about that, that actual thoughts as you're finishing. But goal setting is something that people are always doing. So people will set a goal, maybe it was years ago. In fact, it took me 20 years to achieve one of my principal triathlon goals. Kept coming close. But let me say this, as a coach, I have spent many hours talking to triathletes at finish lines of events. And I can tell you that those that were disappointed in their performance, 99% of the time, it had nothing to do with their performance and had everything to do with their goal setting. Their goal setting wasn't realistic. People will set a goal 4 months before a triathlon. There's no point, because you don't know what it's going to be like on event day. You don't know what your training is going to be like. You don't know what the weather is going to be like. You don't know about the variables that might come into play. So your goal setting should happen just before the event. Sure, you can have a framework before, but just before the event, base your performance goals on your training, okay? Having multiple goals is something I encourage all of my athletes to do. So the number one goal, and this, we'll call it goal 5, all right? So the first in a 5-step goal setting structure really is the most important, and that is to make it to the starting line. If you are so locked on a time goal that you injure yourself and you don't make it to the race, that is not good. All right. So your number one goal and your overwhelming directive in your training has got to be to not injure yourself. So that's number one. So making it to the start line, just because that's the first in 5 goals, does not belittle it. That is the number one goal. The next one, which can be challenging mentally, is to enjoy the day, to have fun, to relax, get out there, take it all in, like I talked about. Goal 3 could be, and this is just a suggested structure, obviously, goal 3 could be finish the race, cross that finish line and soak it all in as you are doing so. And then we have our time goals. So the attainable time goal that's based on your training. All right, again, based on your training. And then the final can be the wind at my back in both ways time goal. So everything goes perfect. And oh my God, I am, a world champion or something, or I'm going to qualify for the Olympic team. Maybe not the Olympic team. Now is the time, and before your event, to make sure that you practice some skills that you're going to need on race day. I'll interject first, and I'll talk to those that are going to be doing a pool triathlon like the early bird. I didn't represent this in the first point here with regards to swimming, but at the early bird, those that are doing the 500-meter swim are going to be swimming in a 50-meter pool. So there's one thing you could do if you can find the pool time in advance of your pool try, is to swim in a 50-meter pool. It's a long way down, all right? The next thing that you need to know is you're going to typically in a pool try, like the early bird, swim 50, duck under the lane rope, and then swim back. So maybe just orientate yourself to ducking under and pushing off. In an open water triathlon, like the Britannia triathlon that's coming up in early June, it's a first open water. So the majority of triathlons are open water swims. And so you need to get in the open water and practice before the triathlon. That is so important. Just find water like Mooney's or the Windsurf Beach Britannia that's walkable depth. If you're going to the deep water, make sure to be safe and swim with friends. Make sure you're capable, you're able to do that. And also perhaps have or I highly recommend to have a swim buoy behind you, inflatable swim buoy that you can float on. So starts and settling in open water is one of the most intense things in all of sport, every sport out there, because it's the start of your event. You're not necessarily fully warmed up. You've got anxiousness. You're going into water in which you can sink. There's other people around you. There's a lot going on. So warm up. I'm going to talk more about that later. But at the start, you're going to start swimming and your heart rate's going to go up. Everybody's does. You just have to start swimming and focus and breathe and settle. So one of the ways you can practice this in the pool is to do a 100-meter interval, a series of 100-meter intervals with short rest. The first 25, sprint, go as hard as you can. Not that you would do that in a race, but what that will do is simulate that shortness of breath, and it'll give you the opportunity to learn and practice recovering from shortness of breath. So you sprint 25, you push off the wall, and then you start settling down and recovering while you swim, while you turn to breathe. You can practice it in the open water as well. Sprint for a little bit, calm down. Sighting, make sure you practice sighting. We're not going to go into all of the skills of sighting, but in the open water, you got to know where you're going. Practice cornering if you can. If there's nothing that you're going to turn around, like an actual buoy, then just practice doing some right angle turns so you know exactly what you're doing there. Contact, if you are swimming with a buddy, then here's what I suggest. Well, you are swimming with a buddy, right? We've already established that. I suggest that buddy swim behind you and tap your toes continuously. And then you turn around and you do that for buddy. And then you swim beside each other and designate one hitter and just push a little bit to get a feeling for what it's like to be touched, impacted in the water, because it does happen. In your training on the bike, a triathlon is a time trial. You're getting on the bike, you're getting out there. You want to find the gear that suits the terrain, that allows you to endure, but also go fast. So you got to know your gears on your bike. You're looking for, if it's, and much of Colonel By, where the early bird is flat. So you're looking for a time trial gear, a gear that when you're on the flats, you can go fast with a good cadence, but endure. So practice that. Practice knowing your gears. Running with your bike. When you depart the transition zone for the bike course, and when you return, you'll be walking or running with your bike. You can hold the handlebars. I'll do my best, Marcel Marceau here. You can hold the handlebars. One thing to know there, if you're holding the handlebars or you're holding the stem, your calves may impact the pedal. So be careful, keep it nice and wide. If you hold by the stem, which is the little bar that connects the handlebars to the frame, you can hold it a little wider, so there's less risk. Another option for the more advanced athletes is to actually hold the seat and direct it by the seat, which, you look pretty cool doing that, but you need to practice. The mounting and dismounting. So do this smoothly, but I want you to rehearse it. Obviously, we mount and dismount all the time, but I want you to get out into a parking lot or something and run your bike to a spot, maybe a parking stripe, and think you're in a triathlon and put yourself in that mentality. Maybe your heart rate will just lift a little bit, and just think about carefully coming on, pushing off, clipping in, then starting. And after you push off and start, cycling in a straight line. The last thing anybody wants is somebody looking down and trying to clip in and zigzagging as they depart from the mount line. Same thing on the dismount line. Practice stopping before a line, dismounting, and then running with your bike. Practice doing U-turns. People don't practice U-turns, and you need to do them. We never U-turn, rarely ever U-turn in our general cycling out there. So when you approach the U-turn, as you will in almost any triathlon, approach wide. So if this is the cone in the middle, don't aim for the cone. Approach wide, approach wide, turn, hit the apex of the turn, and exit at the same angle as you approached. So practice your U-turns, both directions. Great place to do that is in a parking lot. Practice drinking on the bike. I remember many years ago, an athlete saying to me, I was really, really dehydrated, and I was so bad early in the run. And I said, why were you dehydrated? So I didn't drink on the bike. And the reason this individual didn't drink on the bike is they were too afraid to take a hand off of the handlebars and grab the water bottle. Practice that. Practice that. You're doing a 10K ride, the try, maybe you don't have to drink on the bike. But eventually, it's a skill you need as a cyclist or a triathlete. So practice drinking. And finally, and maybe most importantly, practice shoulder checks. When you're out there on the course, you're going to have to shoulder check in order to steer around other individuals. And you do not change your line until you do a shoulder check. And what we want to do in the parking lot again, if you target something in the distance, look over your shoulder and then back and see if you're still in a straight line. Because what happens often is somebody will look and they'll steer towards the side they're looking at. We don't want that. We want you to make sure that you can cycle in a nice straight line. All right, so some more things to think about as we move on to running. Not as much for the running, but there's one big thing called Winnebago legs. So doing some break, I talked about this in my training presentation that's available on YouTube. Everybody, the best in the world, including Lori Bowden, 2-time Ironman world champion, Canadian. She felt, Simon, everybody feels terrible getting off the bike because your cycling muscles are firing and not your running muscles. So it takes a while. They look great as they leave the T-zone, but they don't feel great. So I want you to look great, just like them. And what will happen, you'll feel uncomfortable, everybody does, but the running muscles will come. They will come, they'll start to fire and you'll feel better. Practice your transitions. If you've got a backyard or the parking lot or a park, take all your stuff and practice them. This is not because transitions are super important unless you're a really competitive triathlete. This is about enjoying the day and being calm and not being stressed. So if everything happens automatically on race day, you won't feel stressed and you'll enjoy it more. Where can things go wrong? Things go wrong in transition. Shirts can go flying and you know, you can be hopping around trying to change things, you know, looking for things in your T-zone. So practice them, lay your stuff out and practice your transitions just with a few running strides in, you know, put your, if you're wearing a wetsuit, put your wetsuit on or your swimsuit. Practice coming to your bike, preparing to bike, run 10 meters with your bike and then come back and try your transition from bike to run. Another thing you can do, because you'll have nervous energy the week before the race, is to visualize it. Just sit down, lay down, and visualize yourself. And it's very, very effective for the brain and the body. Visualize yourself coming out of the pool or out of the water, making your changes. That can really, really help. When you're doing all this, smooth and relaxed, not rushed. Those that rush in their brain, those that rush make mistakes and they're slower overall. All right, so be smooth and intentional and focus on your breathing. When you're practicing, some extra equipment that I've talked about before, maybe you'll try it out and see how it goes. Things like a body glide, which is a non-friction sort of a antiperspirant stick kind of thing, and that can help you get your wetsuit off. Elastic laces on your running shoes. Things that are, well, both of those options are not expensive, and you know, they can add to the fun of being a triathlete. Practicing nutrition. We're always practicing nutrition every day. because our body needs fuel to stay healthy. But when you're preparing for a triathlon, know this, that for a sprint or super sprint try, unless you're undernourished coming into the event, you don't really need to supplement anything other than a fluid replacement drink during the race. You could, though. You could take a gel, something, and hopefully you would have trained. That's why I say practicing it, right? If you plan to take a gel, then train with the gel. One of your longer runs. Generally, you practice nutrition on your longer outings, your long run, your long bike ride. So you're doing a sprint try. A gel during the 5K may give you a little boost, especially if it's caffeinated. But make sure to try it in training. Do not sample a gel when you're not training. They're terrible. Like, go into a shop and say, oh yeah, I'll buy this one and taste it. Oh no, it's terrible. Nothing tastes better when you're physically active. Nothing tastes worse when you're not. Longer events. So we're talking about your Olympic and onward. You need to experiment on the long days, as I've said. And the most important thing is not to take in too much. All right. So you need to experiment on your long rides specifically, because that is when you'll be taking in most of your nutrition. And your starting point for experimentation is 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight per hour. Right, so you're starting your experimentation there. You might not be able to take in that much. You might have gastro problems. You might be able to train your body to take in a little bit more, but make sure to practice. Fluid in your training, make sure to, again, practice drinking. Drink what you're going to be drinking on race day and eat what you're going to be eating on race day. The day of the event, try not to introduce anything new, all right? And yes, during your training and on race day, adjust your fluid intake for the weather and also based on your training experience. Get a feeling. Even, if you have a training log, consider logging how much you drink on different days and sort of perhaps add the temperature out there. That's for people that want to get right into all this fun stuff, all these variables. So let's talk about the taper. Boy, it's hard. It's hard not to exercise or train in the 7+ days before an event, but it's the only way that we arrive at peak fitness. The most important thing for you to know, and I'll repeat this later in this presentation, is that any hard workout within 7 days of an event is only going to hurt you on race day, because it takes at least 7 days for the body to fully absorb a workout. If you, on the other hand, just do a little bit of work to remain fresh and you maintain your feel for swim, bike, and run, your body will absorb all of the previous training and you'll be at peak fitness on race day. All right, so that's what we're after. All of your glycogen stores, your energy stores will be topped up. And yeah, it's the same thing over and over. People think, because there's anxiousness. I'll talk about this in the next window, but people think if they're not training, they're losing fitness. Wrong. In taper week, with all the work behind you, you are gaining fitness because you are fully recovering and absorbing all the previous training. I won't get into, and I did this before, I won't talk about the taper structure and stuff more than just some basics in a moment, but the longer the race, suffice to say, the longer the race, the longer the taper. So as long as 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, some athletes for an Ironman. So we'll talk about taper madness. So there'll be some anxiousness, some nervousness the week of the race, especially, first of all, biochemically, you're not exercising as much. So your body's adjusting a little bit. You've got some excitement little bit of anxiety maybe about the race, and that's going to play. And many athletes will think, okay, well, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to do the distances on Wednesday just to make sure I can do them on Saturday. That's going to ruin your Saturday, I'm telling you now, because you'll have a great time on Wednesday, and on Saturday, soon into the race, you'll be exhausted. So it's hard, but you gotta be an adult, okay, and hold back until race day. It's not unusual, especially if you've done a lot of training. If you're doing the longer events and done a lot of training, to feel a little unwell, a little warm, maybe even have the sniffles a little bit. For the most part, that is an adjustment in your hormones and biochemistry. So don't freak out if you are feeling a little off. Be cautious, obviously, and make sure you aren't ill, but know that there is a possibility it's just a hormonal adjustment. Generally, the thing to tell yourself, among other things in the taper, is that it's better to arrive 10% undertrained than 1% overtrained. It is, I'm telling you, it's a bad feeling being out there. I've talked to athletes that have done it. They're out there, all the expectation, all of the work, and they didn't taper well, and they're out there and they just got nothing. It makes no sense. They're so frustrated. Well, I did all that training. I'm super fit. Why am I so tired? Didn't come to peak fitness. Didn't absorb all of that training. So taper week is hard, folks. Be prepared for that. Some of you are heading into to it right now. So the most basic, triathlon training can be incredibly complex, like rocket science, or it can be very simple, right? It's up to you. Both are effective approaches. So here's a really super simple approach to taper that I use personally and I use with most of my athletes. You want to do just enough to maintain the feel of swimming, biking, and running. 20 minutes is enough. Remember that during the taper week, no workout, final point here, no workout during the taper should in itself require recovery, because we're already in a big recovery phase, right? So 20 minutes, and if you have a race pace, right? If you're not just in it to survive and cross the finish line, as the majority are, if you have a race pace, then during that little 20 minutes, then in the middle of it, do 3 times 1 minute at whatever your race pace is. That'll fire your nerves. It'll refresh your neuromuscular system and remind your system what it feels like. So race morning, things will be fresh. I recommend your run to be the furthest out before the race, then your bike, your swim, ideally for the swim, day before, really short, 5 minutes, because that's the hardest part of a triathlon. It's the first thing. You want to feel, the swim wants to feel familiar on race morning. So a great strategy, if it's an open water triathlon, is to take your wetsuit along when you go to pick up your race kit. And you can go for a really short swim, right? Really short. So your nutrition during taper week, first of all, you're not going to be exercising as much, but you want your caloric intake to be roughly the same. It's not unusual to gain a few pounds during the taper week. It's going to be fluid, right? So that's going to be useful. Don't stress it. Don't stress it. If you gain 20 pounds, then maybe back off a little bit, all right? But gaining just a little bit is not a bad thing. But race week, it's just normal, regular balanced meals. You're not carb loading 6 days before an event. It's the day before is really important. Obviously, you're staying hydrated all week. And the night before, your meal the night before, it's really what fuels you on race morning, is your meal the night before. Okay, that's important. Not your breakfast the day of. It's your meal the night before. You don't want to fool around with anything that's new, or you know that your GI tract has trouble with. So go with the sure thing. Pasta, whatever, rice, chicken, something that works. My wedding anniversary, no, sorry, my the anniversary of meeting my wife is right around this time of year. And I did the early bird one year, and the night before was our anniversary, and my wife chose Indian. And I'm not saying no to my wife on the anniversary. You can just say it. Indian, hot curry, night before triathlon. Not a good choice, not a good choice. So easily digestible, and don't have it too late. Give your body, eat at a normal meal time. The morning of now. If an athlete I talk to says, oh, I had to stop in a porta potty during the race to do a number 2. First thing I'll ask them is, when did you have your breakfast? And they'll almost always, they'll say 2 hours or less before the event. I highly recommend 3 hours. If at the starting line, you're feeling just a little bit hungry, that's not a bad thing. That means that you have fully absorbed and eliminated breakfast and the evening meal the night before, right? Your glycogen stores are full. You're ready. Just because you're a little bit peckish, that'll be turned off as soon as you start to exercise. So you don't need a big breakfast. You just need enough to fire your metabolism. I'm 200 pounds, and I will have, for breakfast before a triathlon, I'll have a single bagel with maybe a little peanut butter. Right? So, and that works for me. So, digestion time, keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. So, it is really important to keep all of these taper aspects in mind. As we start to approach and you have extra time, then you can start to do all the planning for race day. So having a packing list, developing your own packing list with the items here. So as this will be on YouTube, you can chapter your way to this list, but got to have your clothing. Maybe you're using a race belt as opposed to pinning your shirt. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Cap, goggles, maybe you've got a wetsuit, all of the stuff that you'll need on the bike for the run. Some peripherals, like I mentioned, got to have sunscreen. Definitely pack some sunscreen, baby powder, body glide. I know an athlete who ran the Boston Marathon recently, and she did not sunscreen enough. And I think 3 weeks later, her body marking, you could still see her name in her arm from the stickers that were on her arm. Gotta have a bin or bag for all of your stuff, obviously. So plan, you gotta have your sunglasses. So I highly recommend creating a packing list and just leave. And if you have what I use is one of those grocery bins. They're just the right size, and just leave your list in that grocery bin when you store it. And it's always there for your next triathlon. So pre-event, know the course. All the websites have good maps. All right, so study the maps. If you can get down to the site well in advance, sort of try to scope it out. I'll be talking about race morning momentarily. Know how many loops you're doing on the swim, the bike, the run, where the loops go generally. Know the entries and exits from the T-zone. Know where the aid stations will be approximately. Arrive early. I was hesitant to put an hour and a half, honestly, because I really want you to make a day of it. I've said here to schedule a nap under a tree, all right, in your plan for race morning. I'm telling you this, you'll never get to it. If you arrive 3 hours before the event, you'll still never get to that nap. There just always seems to be something to do, and there's nervous energy. So the last thing you need is to be panicked race morning. Make a day of it. Arrive at least 2 hours before. Know your directions to the site. Know where the parking is. Every place is different, right? And of course, locate the porta potties. Got to know where they are. I don't think I listed this, but also know where you can fill water bottles. on the different race sites. So that's an important point as well. Continuing on with the pre-event. Now we're on the day of the event, right? We have parked, we have arrived. We go to the race center, typically located near the transition zone, and you're picking up your race kit. So in that race kit will be your race number. That race number will be connected to a race belt. Now, I'm not a big one to flog equipment, but a race belt sure makes life easy. They cost like 10 bucks, and you can pin your number to the race belt. It goes on the back when you're riding and on the front when you're running. If you don't have a race belt, then your number gets pinned to the front of your shirt, the shirt you'll use on the bike and the run. So you got that. In your bag as well, there'll be a shirt, some swag, some flyers, possibly a shirt, depending on the triathlon and when you registered, etc. And most triathlons will have a swim cap. Some don't. So make sure to bring one just in case. You will then go to take your bib number, and you'll go to the timing tent, typically sports stats in most triathlons. And you'll show them your race number, and they'll give you a corresponding number or timing chip that'll go on your left ankle. You'll then go to the body marking table. This is a table, communal table, where there's a whole bunch of magic markers, and you will mark yourself in corresponding to the information that's given at that table, and there'll be a volunteer there. And typically athletes will body mark each other. Nice chance to connect with other people. Your race will go on one ankle, and your age group typically on the other, and then the same on the arm as well. But there'll be lots of help. Don't worry, you don't have to remember that. Just remember you got to go to body marking. Take your bike then with your helmet on and take it. This is outside of the transition zone. Just take it for a very small ride. Maybe you had your front wheel off in the car. Maybe you had it packed up and you had it rebuilt. Make sure it's working. Make sure everything is working. The tires are fully inflated. If there are any technical problems with your bike, most triathlons, including the somersault events, will have a bike maintenance tent or location where you can take your bike to get some assistance. And they have saved many an athlete on many a day. When you finish that little ride, leave your bike in an easy gear. When you get on your bike during the event, it makes it a lot easier to get going. So we now move to the transition zone. So your bike and all of your equipment, maybe a bin, you go in, and the racks may be marked with signs, but there'll be lots of volunteers there as well to help guide you to the right rack. The racks are separated generally based on the event you're in. I'll have a picture for you next slide, but you can then rack your bike either with the brake levers on this horizontal bar, or the seat can go on the bar. And like I said, the image coming up will explain that. Then you're going to set up your equipment. So you're going to have your bike here, and then beside your bike on the ground, as you'll see in the next image, will be your equipment. You want to set it up in a logical sequence. So the first thing you're going to need to put on is going to be your helmet and sunglasses, if you have cycling shoes. So don't bury that stuff at the back. Have it right near the back wheel of your bike, or nearest to the outside of your little area. And then, so you've got your cycling stuff, and then you've got your running stuff further in, and then you've got your bin or your bag. A bonus for a tip regarding the bin is it's open. And when you come out of the water, you'll be carrying your goggles, and you can just throw them into that bin so things don't get scattered. So just think about logical order in order that you need it. Check all of your adjustments. I had a friend who came out of the water at the Beach Lake Triathlon once, off the bike, and racked her bike, grabbed her running shoes, and her running shoes were exactly as they were when she arrived for the event. Tied together, they were flung over her shoulder. So in all the nervousness and the muscular fatigue, she had to undo the knot. So make sure everything is ready, all right? Your cycling helmet is properly adjusted, etc. All of that stuff. Little advanced tip that you can practice in training is to leave your cycling shoes in the pedals, as the advanced or elite athletes do. It's not as hard as you think. If you do it in training, you'll learn to do that. Another tip is baby powder in your cycling shoes, baby and running shoes, but especially your cycling shoes, because your feet typically will be a little wet, and you'll be able to slide in, and that baby powder will make that more easier and will also absorb some of the moisture on your feet. So we are almost ready to go. Promised a photo here of a T-zone. And this is a really great photo. So we've got two bikes side by each. One has the seat on the bar, and the next one over has the brake levers on the bar. Now, what's really interesting here is this athlete did the opposite of what I said. So it's a great photo. They're going to be standing here, right? So what's at their feet? What's at their feet? The bag. No, the bag should be, hold on, yeah, get this right. The bag should be in there. The helmet should be out here, right? So good example of it'll work, you know, he or she will find their way, but it just makes sense to place it in the order that you need it. And to try to, again, decrease the amount of stress that you're experiencing. You've then got some time, right? You're all set up, so, and you've come really early. Do a walkthrough from your rack site. Do a walk to, go look at the beach, figure out the swim course, or roughly near where the pool is, if it's a pool triathlon. And think about, okay, come to the T-zone where you'll be entering the swim in, where swimmers will enter, and navigate yourself from there down the rows to find your bike. And then from your bike, navigate yourself to where the bike out will be, where you'll exit. From the bike out, navigate your way back into the same rack spot. The transition zone feels and looks very different during an event to when it's to before the event. And many times I've seen people work really hard on the bike and come in off the bike and stop. They forgot where their transition spot was, right? You can't just dump it anywhere because you got to find your shoes. So walk those paths. And again, make sure that you understand the course map, the loops. The day before most triathlons, or the morning of, there's an orientation, Friday at 5 o'clock, I think, for the early bird, I think with Todd from the OTC. So I encourage you to be as prepared as possible. Know the event inside and out. If you're going to just remember one slide from this presentation, this is the one, all right? The big five performance tips. First, we talked about this. Adjust your goals to the reality of your training. Number two, warm up for the swim. Get in the water before, swim just a little bit. The start of the event will feel so much better. I know it seems counterintuitive to, I'm already doing an endurance event, and this guy is asking me to exercise more voluntarily. Please just warm up for the swim. It will make your day, and your swim especially, so much better. Cautious pacing on the bike. I've talked about this in the other seminars. Avoid the tri-trap. The tri-trap is this. You get out of the water, hallelujah, I survived the swim, as almost every triathlete says. You get on the bike, you're rested, and you're fitter than ever, and you start cycling and you're going fast. You look at your cycle computer and you do a quick calculation and realize you are about to qualify for the Olympic Games. And then 10 minutes later, you think, oh, I think maybe I'll slow down a little bit. And then 45 minutes later, you think that may have been a mistake. That is confirmed then when you start to run and you have seriously bad Winnebago legs. So hold back. Set up your run on the bike. Don't fall for that trap. Okay. Stick with the fueling plan. Don't change anything in training, as I said before. And psychologically, expect dark moments and arm yourself, prepare yourself with the self-talk that's required. And probably the simplest thing that I'll share is to chunk it. All right. On that run, if you're tired, then just make sure you're running to that next tree. And once you get to that next tree, then run to the next tree after that. This woman, one of my favorite, probably my favorite triathlete of all time, Karen Smyers, overcame incredible adversity in her career. She's here winning the Ironman World Championship 6 weeks after she won the Olympic Distance World Championship, something that will never, ever be repeated. I give Karen so many great plugs because she's my favorite. All right. In the famous words of Izzy Mendelbaum, it's go time. That was a Seinfeld reference, by the way. So let's get into the event. Some things to remember. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about at the start line of triathlons. So the swim, warm up. What's the start? Is it in a pool where you're going to slide in and then start swimming like at the early bird? Is it an in-water start? Is it a beach start? Know those and be prepared for them, just so you know what's happening. Self-seeding. The Britannia Tribe, for example, we will be on the beach. All the swimmers will be on the beach. And if you are a brand new swimmer, you don't want to be at the front of the line. Otherwise, you're going to get maybe some people swimming over you. So step back a little bit. Conversely, if you're a strong swimmer, I'm a strong swimmer. I've been swimming my whole life. I'm part of the Masters Club, but it's my first triathlon. So I'm going to start at the back. Don't start at the back because you'll keep running into people and it'll be uncomfortable for you and uncomfortable for them. If you want to do a calculation, look at the swim times from your event in previous years, right? And then sort of think, okay, well, I'd be in the middle of that. Well, if you're in the middle of that, you're probably going to be in the middle of this group. So seed yourself there. I talked about settling down at the start of the swim. Expect the heart rate spike. Get the self-talk, whatever your mantra is. Slow and smooth, repeat, breathe and blow, breathe and blow. Don't hesitate to cloud count. Roll over on your back, do some elementary backstroke, catch your breath, calm yourself down, and then start going again. Rhythm is everything in swimming. So find a rhythm in the pool or a rhythm in open water. In the open water, your rhythm is centered upon your sighting. So depending on how much experience you have, you might sight every 4th breath or every 8th breath. Find a rhythm, get that number counting, just like you're meditating, right? And keep repeating. But don't swim like this. If you're not, either you're sighting or you're not sighting. All right, so keep your head down when you're not sighting. Otherwise, you're going to be really inefficient traveling through the water with your head too high. Contact, I've already talked about this. Expect it, accept it, and get back in a rhythm. It's part of the game. It's going to happen. Somebody is going to touch your body. All right, maybe your feet. Well, that's the worst, right? The turns, when you come to a buoy, you've got a right angle turn coming off of it, typically. Then keep your head down. Don't stop and do that. All right. Keep swimming, keep the head down, take your turn off, and then sight as you come off of that buoy. We're coming out of the water. And as you leave the water, your body is going to be freaking out a little bit. It was just getting comfortable swimming, and now you're running. So breathe deeply and calmly. If somebody gets a stitch, it'll happen in transition, right? And that's just from a diaphragm that is really tense. So really breathe. Walking or jogging, you're going to go into the T zone. Breathing and relaxing. If you're wearing a wetsuit, as you walk or jog, you can pull it down to your waist. When you get to your bike, the rest can come off. Be smooth and intentional. Don't rush. Remember, smooth and intentional is faster. Again, we talked about visualizing. Once you have your clothing adjusted, you have to buckle your helmet on, CSA approved, sunglasses if you want, but have to have the helmet buckled before you remove your bike from the rack. Cannot have headphones. Cannot have headphones. You need to hear what's happening around you. You go to the bike out location. You're cautious when running with the bike, as I mentioned before, and you arrive at the mount line, cautiously mounting your bike and cautiously going in a straight line, not weaving. So now we're out on the bike course. Are your heart rates high right now? Higher than they were at the start of the talk? It's all getting more real, folks. So we're out on the bike course. Focus on cadence. Don't grind a big gear. Find the gear that allows you to maintain a cadence of roughly 90 RPMs, give or take. When you're out there on the bike course, don't hug the curb. Stay a meter out from the curb. Maintain a meter. Right? The last thing we want is a rider hugging the curb. And so if this is the curb, hugging the curb and then suddenly swerving to avoid a drain. A meter will help you avoid all the drains and keep you in a straight line riding predictably. Line up, as I talked about with the U-turns, line up wide as you approach any U-turn. You're not allowed to draft. You're not allowed to sustain a position between 3 bike lengths behind another cyclist. You either have to do a shoulder check, pull out and pass them, or you have to drop back. Right? Blocking, you can't sustain a position beside another cyclist and just go along chatting. You either have to advance and pull in or drop back and pull in. When you pass, whenever you change your line, do a shoulder check, pull out, you pass somebody, do a shoulder check, then pull back in. Shoulder checks are so important. Again, something that we really want you to practice. Transition 2, we're off the bike. We've dismounted before the dismount line. We are now walking or jogging our bike into the T-zone carefully, smooth and intentional, breathing and relaxing and not rushing, but being smooth and intentional. You have to leave your helmet on until you rack your bike. You take your helmet off, change to your running stuff, and then walk or jog out the run location. Again, no headphones. We're on to the run course. And this is where the Winnebago legs, of course, are starting to come in. So we are accepting it. We just run, and the legs will find their way. Get your cadence. Don't do a long, lopey stride. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Short and quick strides. Keep your upper body relaxed. Don't get all tense. Shake the arm out every once in a while. Sorry, I was in cycling posture. Shake your arms out. All right, stay nice and relaxed. Shoulders down, chest out. Breathe, relax. Get those water and sports drinks in at the aid stations. And you know what? Thank a volunteer. If you thank a volunteer, studies have shown it'll knock 5 seconds off your race time. Sounds good to me. I bet you it will, because it'll get, it gives you a boost, right? We're almost there, folks. We're crossing the finish line, of course. The first thing you do as you're coming down that finish chute is you give thanks for being freakishly healthy enough to participate in something as outrageous as a triathlon. You check your hair before you cross the finish line because your photo will be taken, and you do not want, bike helmet hair or a fluid replacement drink or gel drooling in the corner of your mouth. You got to be looking good, folks. You cross the finish line, you're going to receive a medal. There's snacks, bagels, what have you, drinks, and a good chance to hang out. If you don't know anybody at the finish line, meet somebody. You want a good opening line at a triathlon? Maybe walk up to somebody that obviously just did a triathlon and say, hey, how'd it go? you'll have a friend right there. Everybody wants to talk at the finish line, almost everybody, right? So make a friend if you don't already have somebody there. If you have an opportunity, you can, and you're at an open water try, wade back into the water and loosen up those muscles. It feels awfully good to go into cool water after a hot triathlon. The results will be posted somewhere. You'll have an opportunity to check it at the site if that's important to you, if you're looking at awards or anything like that. And then, oh yes, one of the greatest parts about Triathlon Day is you get to go home and have an awesome nap. So I hope that your friends and family understand that that is a part of the triathlon, is that nap. And if they have any questions, they email me and I'll make sure they understand. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about TriathlonCoach.ca and Ottawa Online Fitness. We have athletes ranging in age from 30 to 72. We have people training for Tri and Ironman all together. We've got runners, canoeists, gardeners, everything. Membership allows you to have personal coaching where you have a training log and it's checked every week, and your training is managed by me. And there's also 5 to 8 classes a week that are online, live, or recorded for you to enjoy. So it's a lot of fun. We have a fantastic community. We just did a 5K fun run yesterday in the heat and had some amazing results there. So I want to thank you all for being here, and for those that have taken in all 4 of the seminars. And also, of course, thank you to Adam for giving me the opportunity to do these. So if you have any questions about OOF or TriathlonCoach.ca or Ottawa Swimming, don't hesitate to email me via the websites, ottawaswimming.ca and ottawaonlinefitness.ca.